have to have someone in charge who's fully capable of giving their very best, because that's what this group deserves and demands. And we have that man here in San Antonio.
With Gregg Popovich officially done coaching, the Spurs have chosen his successor. It's not some experienced, high-profile name, as many expected, that became available recently. Instead, they are fully handing the keys to Mitch Johnson, an assistant coach who stepped in after Popovich suffered a stroke in November 2024. Here's why it surprised many, except for those who were closely following San Antonio. The Spurs had no shortage of qualified candidates with deep ties to Popovich and the organization. One of those recently fired names was Mike Budenholzer, who spent nearly 2 decades working under Pop from 1996 to 2013. The other was Taylor Jenkins, who started in their system coaching the G League affiliate. First, he worked as an assistant and then as a head coach of the Austin Toros between 2008 and 2013. Yes, I know, both of them were fired from their respective teams by the end of this season, and not without a reason. But considering each coach and their past accomplishments, you know you would be getting proven experience. Jenkins for the past 6 years had worked with a young star in Ja Morant and saw the playoffs 3 of those 6 years. Meanwhile, Budenholzer had won Coach of the Year awards with both the Hawks and the Bucks, bringing a championship back to Milwaukee in 2021. But despite those and other big names, the Spurs went with Mitch Johnson. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense, as it feels like a natural extension of how they always have operated. Mitch Johnson isn't just some random young assistant getting a lucky break. He's the son of a former NBA player, John Johnson, a respected veteran who scored over 10,000 points in his NBA career. But more importantly, Mitch began working with the Spurs organization back in 2016 as an assistant coach for the Austin Spurs. First, he helped the team win a G League championship in 2018, and next year was promoted to a full-time assistant on the Spurs' NBA bench, replacing none other than Tim Duncan. That means Johnson has been a part of the Spurs system for 9 years. That's more experience within Spurs culture than most of other candidates, and it's the most recent one. Yes, he's young and doesn't have a long track record as a head coach, but even that comes with a caveat. He essentially coached the entire 2024-25 NBA season after Popovich's health scare and had already spent years working directly under him. For a first-time head coach, that's a strong foundation. And while the sample size might be small, there are some numbers we can look at. In the first 5 games of the season under Popovich, the Spurs averaged around 104 points per game. Under Mitch Johnson, that jumped to approximately 114 points per game. More importantly, the team improved its overall record from 22-60 in the 2023-24 season to 34-48 this past year. A 12-win improvement is quite significant, but at the same time, Wemby and co naturally matured, while the additions of Fox and CP3 elevated Spurs to near play-in level. If it wasn't for the injuries, who knows, maybe they would have actually made the playoffs. Beyond stats, Johnson has earned praise for his calm, composed demeanor. He gives his players the freedom and confidence while maintaining Spurs' identity, prioritizing ball movement, defensive discipline, and structure. At the same time, he's not stuck in the past. He's blending the traditional Spurs principles with modern strategies, which makes him a great bridge between eras. In today's NBA, the relationship between players and coaches is more important than ever. This is a player-driven league. Coaches are often hired or fired based on how well they connect with the players, especially with the franchise stars. That's another strong argument in favor of Mitch Johnson. Not only does he seem to have built strong relationships across the roster, but more importantly, he has developed a real bond with the one player the Spurs are building their entire future around, Victor Wembanyama. See, Mitch Johnson isn't just another internal promotion, he's someone who's already earned Wembanyama's trust. First as Wemby's individual shooting coach, the results of which are evident. And now as someone who is refining the offensive game as a whole. You see, the timing of Wembanyama's evolution this season closely aligned with Johnson's increased influence. In the 2023-24 season under Popovich, Wembanyama averaged just 5.5 three-pointer attempts per game. That number ticked up slightly to 6.8 during the first few games of the 2024-25 season when Pop was still coaching. But once Johnson stepped in, Wemby's attempts jumped to nearly 9 per game. I'm pretty certain that's not a coincidence. It's a clear sign that Johnson gave Wembanyama the green light to expand his game, embrace his versatility, and play more like a rim-protecting wing. That kind of trust and vision is a huge reason why this coaching move makes sense for the Spurs. Wembanyama even said he trusts Mitch Johnson to grow into this role, showing real confidence in his leadership. He also praised Johnson for not being afraid to call him out.
I thought he had some very poor moments in the first 3 quarters in terms of fundamentals and solid basketball.
Although it probably isn't, that could be a reflection of Johnson's own brief experience playing internationally, something that likely helps him relate to Wemby's mindset and background. Johnson has also done a terrific job developing other young talent, most notably rookie Stephon Castle. From the start, he gave Castle a surprising amount of freedom for a first-year player, and it paid off. He was selected as the Rookie of the Year this season despite being picked just 4th. While Castle still lacks a reliable outside shot and isn't much of a threat from 3, Johnson didn't try to force him into a role he wasn't ready for. Instead, he leaned into Castle's strengths, maximizing his athleticism, slashing ability, defensive potential, and feel for the game. That kind of tailored coaching shows Johnson understands how to bring the best out of young players without limiting their confidence or creativity. With Castle showing flashes of long-term upside, it's another example of Johnson earning trust as a coach who's good at development. There were also these recent comments from Chris Paul further validating just how much Mitch Johnson's presence has been felt in the Spurs locker room. Paul emphasized that Johnson's transition into the head coaching role has been seamless, largely because of the trust he had already built with the players. He had spent years working closely with them, running workouts, guiding them through drills, and giving instructions during games. So the connection was really solid. Paul also pointed out that Johnson coaches with real passion, the kind you only get from someone who truly understands the game on a player's level. It makes sense. Mitch was a point guard at Stanford, and you can still see that in the way he communicates, motivates, and manages the game. There's trust, open communication, and mutual respect, which is everything you want in a young coach leading a developing group. And having these young, unproven coaches has been a trend across the NBA. Teams are not just putting their faith in assistant coaches, but are getting incredible results too. Just look at the 2 best teams in the NBA right now. The Celtics, who finished 2nd in the East, followed a similar path. Joe Mazzulla took over as head coach after a brief stint as an assistant and ended up leading Boston to a championship in just his 2nd season. In the West, Oklahoma City gave Mark Daigneault the reins in 2020 despite him having no previous head coaching experience at the NBA level. After years of working within the OKC organization, both in the G League and NBA, Daigneault has now led them to back-to-back seasons as the top team in the Western Conference. Yet another example of how internal continuity can actually bring results. At the end of the day, the Spurs are in a position where they really have nothing to lose. Let's be honest, it would have cost them significantly more to go after a big-name coach. Instead, they chose to trust the process and give Mitch Johnson the keys. And when you look around the league and see this trend working for some of the best teams, it's not hard to understand why they believe it could work for them too. Even if things don't go according to the plan, which personally I don't think is going to happen, the Spurs will still have strong options. With Gregg Popovich now running basketball operations, they have a massive advantage. Countless coaches across the league see him as a mentor, even those who haven't directly worked under him. If anyone can reach out and bring in a top-tier coach when needed, it's Pop. And let's not forget, coaching Wemby is a dream job for most. On top of that, the roster includes a veteran like Chris Paul, who is one of the most intelligent players the game has ever seen. If Johnson's stint as the head coach turns sour, you've got a plan B reminiscent of someone like a Jason Kidd or JJ Redick, a retiring high IQ guard who brings in leadership and accountability. Might sound harsh, but in the worst case scenario, Mitch Johnson might be just warming the seat for CP3. Finally, there's the possibility of acquiring Giannis this offseason. If Windhorse sources are correct, the Greek Freak is most likely to either join the Houston Rockets or the San Antonio Spurs. While Houston is the more likely option, as I've covered before, there's still that possibility. And if it comes true, then Mitch Johnson's seat would immediately be under pressure to win now. I personally would lean towards the route of continuing the rebuild, also developing Wembanyama, but at the same time, kinda sounds dumb to just miss out on prime Giannis. But anyways, I wanna know what you guys think about it. Do you see Mitch Johnson becoming another successful assistant to head coach story? Also, would you even want the Spurs to give up tons of assets for Giannis? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more NBA takes through an overseas lens.